this is a historic $2.5 billion settlement that is an enormous win for consumers. There were two principal allegations here. The first was that Amazon knowingly tricked consumers into enrolling in its Prime subscription program without their consent, and then then the second principal allegation was that Amazon made it unnecessarily difficult for consumers to cancel Prime memberships. So if they no longer wanted to have a Prime subscription, Amazon made it unnecessarily and intentionally difficult for them to cancel.
When you say made it difficult, can you walk us through exactly what that looks like? I've tried to cancel other memberships, so I know how that have worked from my own personal experience, but can you explain this to our viewers, how exactly Amazon did this?
Absolutely. So Amazon actually named its cancellation process the Iliad process, which is a reference to the Homer's long and difficult story, which gives you some sense of Amazon's perspective with respect to that process. There was also evidence presented at trial that the purpose of the process was to prevent consumers from canceling. It took, depending on exactly how consumers approach the process, 6 pages and 6 clicks, and that's in order to complete a cancellation. And that's assuming the consumer knows everywhere to go and does everything right. To provide a further example, Amazon instructed consumers that they could cancel their memberships by pressing a button that was labeled "End Membership," just labeled with the words "End Membership." But when consumers reached that button and then pressed the button that said "End Membership," it did not, in fact, end their membership. And consumers who reasonably misunderstood that they had ended their membership at that point would be continued to be charged by Amazon for a membership that they reasonably thought they had ended.
Is this process that you're kind of describing there part of, I guess, what the FTC has called, quote, dark patterns that Amazon and other businesses have practiced?
I'm not sure that I would use that particular language. What this is a type of inappropriate design. Certain design patterns that can be used online or that are used online, and I do believe, I want to be clear, it's by a minority of companies, but design patterns can be used online in ways that violate federal law. So here, the federal law that is at issue is something called the Restore Online Shoppers Confidence Act, or ROSCA. And one of the things that ROSCA does is it creates obligations on companies that are selling subscription services online, like Amazon Prime, to do certain things. And one of those things is to make sure that consumers have a simple cancellation mechanism. Because the mechanism that Amazon had established, this Iliad cancellation mechanism, was not simple. Amazon's cancellation mechanism was in violation of the law.
So for the settlement, does it include any requirements for Amazon to kind of change the way that this practice goes as far as when they're getting consumers to sign up for Amazon Prime going forward?
It does. So the settlement contains a number of provisions that will require Amazon to come into compliance with the law, which was obviously one of the principal reasons for this action in the first instance. Among other things, with respect to enrollment, it will have to be clear to consumers that when they take certain actions during Amazon checkout, that the effect of those actions is to enroll them in a auto-renewing subscription service that has a price. On the cancellation side, it will no longer be permissible for Amazon to have a confusing process, a process that has unnecessary steps or is unnecessarily complex.
2.5 billion is obviously a very, very big number. How exactly are consumers who are impacted by this actually benefit from this settlement?
That's a great question. So one of the best features of this settlement is that there will be $1.5 billion set aside to provide to consumers who have been affected by these unlawful practices. Many of those consumers will have to do nothing at all. They will simply receive checks of up to $51. There will also be a simple claims process that will be publicized on Amazon's website, and the FTC will help make public as well for consumers to provide or submit a claim form if they have not gotten a check automatically.
I'm curious here. You said that about 1.5 billion is going to go to consumers. What happens to the other billion?
The other billion is a civil penalty that Amazon is paying as a result of the severity of their wrongful conduct. This $1 billion civil penalty is the largest penalty in history for the violation of an FTC rule.
Do you believe that this case is going to change how large tech companies like Amazon and others, maybe how they design their online platforms going forward?
Do. So I think that first of all, a lot of, if not the overwhelming majority of tech companies and other companies operating in the United States are law abiding, and they're doing the best they can to comply with the laws. However, Amazon is the world's largest company. Prime is the largest subscription service in the world, so it sets a certain standard. And so I think by establishing the standards that apply here, that will provide guidance to other industry players as to how to treat their consumers fairly, appropriately, and in conformance with the law.
Did Amazon admit any wrong as part of the settlement?
Amazon denied as part of the settlement, denied any wrongdoing. However, I think it's important to note that during the course of the litigation, the judge found that Amazon had in fact violated the law in at least one particular way. The judge found that the timing of Amazon's disclosures violated certain timing requirements that federal law requires. So Amazon's enrollment process, Prime enrollment process that was at issue in this case, had already been found to be illegal in at least that one respect prior to the trial beginning. Additionally, the judge also found that two individual executives who were named as defendants in this action, were responsible for that illegality. So while Amazon has formally states that it neither admits nor denies any, or states that it denies wrongdoing, it's important to note that the judge in the case went much further than that.
When a case is this big and involves so many people all over the country, how does it land on your doorstep, and where exactly was the case adjudicated?
Well, the case was adjudicated. The trial began not far from where I'm sitting in federal court in downtown Seattle. Cases are brought in different locations for different reasons, but here this was brought in Seattle because it was the location of Amazon's headquarters.
That makes sense. And how did you guys, I guess, go about your investigation of this? Are you relying on, I guess, what you've learned from Amazon, or are you reaching out to certain users who were impacted this? Could you share a little bit of insight on, I guess, how you approach a case like this?
It's a great question. So let me make a couple of points. First of all, we are a law enforcement agency, so I'm not able to tell you exactly how cases like this are developed certainly in any specific instance. What I can say is this. We rely very much on information that the public provides us. The FTC on its website has a feature that enables the public to report problems that they're having with everything from subscription programs to other types of scams, other things that are going on in the consumer protection space, and we love to hear from members of the public that way. That is very helpful to us. We also look at news reports, and we conduct other types of law enforcement activity, including undercover activity and just other types of law enforcement activity as part of our general processes of developing the case. In terms of the extent to which we relied on Amazon's assistance in this matter, actually, we relied on Amazon quite little. The court actually found that Amazon had wrongfully withheld documents from the FTC that the FTC had requested pursuant to a subpoena, and that it had done so in conduct tantamount to bad faith. I think that finding speaks to the fact that Amazon knew that it was doing something wrong.
In the case that Amazon, I guess, maybe finds a workaround, are there any parameters that they have to find, or what would be the penalty if they were found doing something similar in the future?
Penalty, the consequence if they are found doing something similar in the future could be extremely severe. So there is now a federal order that is in place that requires Amazon to make these changes. So not only is there a federal statute that that sets a standard of conduct with respect to Prime enrollment and cancellation, or enrollment and cancellation with respect to subscription processes generally. Amazon is now under a federal court order, and a violation of a federal court order can carry potentially civil or even criminal contempt sanctions should Amazon violate the court order and not do the things that the judge has ordered Amazon to do. So we certainly have every reason to expect that Amazon will comply.
Jonathan.